We really specialize in super unique custom boutique products. That could be anything from woodworking to metalworking, additive manufacturing, laser engraving, laser cutting. We do have a hyper focus in the home theater and AV world, and really that's just because I'm such a passionate enthusiast myself. Essentially, a hush box would be something you'd place in your room to eliminate any distraction from a projector in a high-end home cinema. So, the point of a high-end home cinema is to completely immerse yourself and get deep into the movie, and that's the only thing that you're focused on. Unfortunately, sometimes, as good as projectors are, they can be a little bit distracting. So, by incorporating a hush box into your room, you've effectively eliminated the distraction of the projector. Our design specifically, we were fortunate enough to partner with JVC directly, Dynamat, and Panamorph. JVC was kind enough to send me units to prototype. And really what we wanted to do was we wanted to address several things. Obviously the noise, right? It's in the name, hush box. We want to make it as quiet as possible. The other things we wanted to focus on were heat, right? So projectors still put out a lot of heat, whether it's a bulb or a laser. And when you have that heat in the room, you close up the room, you get a lot of people in there, it can get pretty stuffy pretty quickly. So, we wanted to address that. We also wanted to address a couple other things that really haven't been addressed yet with a hush box, at least not on a broad scale. So one of them is typically when you see a hush box design, you have your ceiling mounted projector and then you're going to place the box around it. That's great for the sound isolation. It could be great for the heat. The one thing it does nothing for is reducing vibration. So, you get into a lot of rooms, it's not uncommon to have multiple 18s or 21s or 24 or 32 or 80-inch subwoofers, right? So in order to eliminate the shaking from your subs on your projector, we developed a leveling bed inside of that projector. So we use a product from Dynamat called their Dynapad. It's foam with a mass-loaded vinyl. And that actually sits on a leveling bed inside of there. So, we're mounting this projector box to a ceiling plate, then the box, and then your projector is actually decoupled inside of there. So, we're attacking the noise, we're attacking the heat, we're attacking the vibration. And then one other really unique feature that we were able to incorporate was the ability to adjust that projector from the underside of the box. So that's always been a big issue because, if you have your projector mounted on the ceiling, you build your box around it. How do you get back inside of it to make those fine adjustments, right? And you'll notice, obviously, we're in Kris's room. He has a Panamorph lens mount. So, we do a billet aluminum mount and we can incorporate, the DCR, the Alpha, and even the new Alpha Pro.
I've always actually been intrigued about doing a hush box in here. The nice thing about, I have the JVC and Z900. I run it at a fan speed or a laser level that has always given me the amount of light that I need. So it really wasn't something where I needed to use more laser. But obviously, if you have headroom in a light engine, I could do things like increase it up to use and try to gain a little more contrast using their aperture, things like that. I just wanted to have the flexibility of that. It opens up other opportunities. Again, I have a Studio Tech 130 G4 in here. It's a great screen. But if I have a little more headroom in the projector, I could technically put a Studio Tech 100 in here and have absolutely no chance at all of sheet. You know what I mean? It's just anytime you add something like that that takes away anything that could be a distraction, it's like, why not? We built this room almost 20 years ago, and literally almost from day one, heat was an issue. This room's on the second floor of our house. When we had it connected to the main ducting system of this house, we live in the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest houses are not designed for cooling, they're designed for heating. So we battled heat in here for a really long time. I had the entire heat pump and everything in the house replaced to try to help, and it didn't. And eventually during COVID, I succumbed to it, and I just put a dedicated heat pump system that's this room, so it's zoned itself. And that really cut down on it, except in the hottest days of summer. So when I heard about the Hushbox from Mike, through the grapevine from a couple other people, I reached out, we started talking, and Mike was fantastic. At first I was actually going to get the version of the Hushbox that was self-cooling, where you have an intake on the back and you're venting off into the room. And I was literally only looking at it from the acoustic standpoint. And again, I even told Mike up front, like, I don't have sound issues in my room. This room's pretty quiet. I did a bunch of measurements of it and everything like that, and it's a nice, quiet room. Um, but I did like the idea that it would allow me, if I wanted to maybe, get a little bit more potential from this projector or even the next one or things like that. And the more I talked to Mike, I saw him at CEDIA and stuff, and, talked to him about the fact that I literally have an open air attic above here. He was like, you really should think about doing the one that, is completely ducted. And thought about it more and more, and I was like, honestly, heat in this room has been more of an issue than acoustics ever has been. So why not just, kill the two birds, one stone kind of thing?
So generally, we do have two models that we focus on. The MK1, which is what you'll see in Kris's room, that is the ultimate projector hushbox solution. It has an inline fan mounted, in another adjacent space. His is in the attic. So essentially, that box is fully active. It has an intake, it has exhaust, and then it's completely sealed from the rest of the room. In fact, it's running right now, and I'm sure you can't even hear it on camera. The other one that we offer it's a self-contained box. So we had a lot of people reach out and go, hey, that's really awesome, but I cannot in any way do ductwork. So we focused on a box that was an all-in-one solution. So it has, a place for the projector and then basically two exhaust channels that run down the side of it. So all we're trying to do with that box is mitigate noise from typically, like a mid laser. So a lot of people are like, hey, I'm fine on mid laser. I just can't go to that high laser. It gets really distracting. So we really just wanted to focus on, could we give you the ability to go from mid laser to high laser with no additional noise? And we were able to achieve that. So it doesn't have the same level of performance as the MK1, but it gives you the ability to get that additional performance that you might be leaving on the table with your projector.
Anything is like that. The darker you make a room, the more you notice any light in it, even the slightest bit of light, because your floor is continually going down. So, noise floor is the same thing. The quieter and quieter you make a room, the more you start to notice things that you wouldn't have heard because it was above that noise floor.
Either of the boxes, the physical dimension of them, and we may have to change a little bit of where the exhaust is, where the intake is, and that's all customizable and it's all in a per build case, but it will support, the new Epsons, the Sonys, and the JVCs. If you wanted to do something much larger like a Barco or a Christie, obviously that would be more of like a one-off design. So I guess the question is, why couldn't you just do it yourself? You could. But I would say, well, then why haven't you? Right? So that's the first thing. But there is certainly a science to making sure that the projector stays cool, that it has the correct amount of airflow. Again, partnering with the manufacturers, providing those specs and working with their engineers, we know that box is cooling adequately, and we know at what laser level and, what the intake temperature should be and then what the outtake temperature should be. So every one of our designs are temperature controlled. So the box has fans that are variable speed. It detects the temperature, and then it'll ramp that fan depending on the temperature of the box. So cooling it is absolutely crucial. Yes, could you just build a box and stick it in it? Yeah, but you're effectively creating an oven. And the exhaust temp out of these projectors is typically well over 100 degrees. So that is crucial, and that is something that you do get the benefit of the time and development and research and partnership that we've had with some of the manufacturers. Every box is custom. Even though the outside of it may look the same, where we put the intake, how it's mounted, Kris has his mounted on a unistrut. A lot of people just mount it directly to drywall to their joist. We've done them where they're connected to clips and channels. All of that is a little bit different. So we want to make sure that we're involved so that when that product arrives to you, it's turnkey. And, you may have a little bit of time involved in running your ductwork and getting everything aligned, but, we want to make sure that it's specific to your application. The other thing is, dimensionally, right? So we know the physical dimensions that the box needs to be to provide the right amount of airflow. But we've had situations where customers say, hey, there's a beam in my room. So that projector, even though it's tucked tight against the ceiling, actually doesn't work in my application. I need a 12-inch extension rod where my projector is currently mounted. So, we'll work with them. We'll make a custom design to where if your lens needs to be exactly 15.5 inches from the ceiling, we just build the box to that spec. So nothing changes for them outside of maybe the physical height of the box. I think when people see them, just the box on the floor, they go, oh my gosh, it's a really big box. But you have to remember, it's a really big projector going into it as well, right? So, we've provided enough airspace to allow for adequate cooling. But we really wanted to focus on this not being super obtrusive in your room. And maybe I'm biased on this, but I think it looks a lot better than a projector hanging on the ceiling. So I have a few things that we have gotten popular for, right? So we know the hush boxes. Ceiling boxes are a big one right now. So with the RP22 standard really coming to fruition last year, or maybe the year before, if you want to meet that standard, you can't just take a ceiling speaker anymore and just put it in the ceiling. And there are very few manufacturers who make a ceiling speaker that can provide the correct access to you. So if you're doing something like a new Revel system, or even a lot of the new JBL stuff, maybe you want to do Bowers and Wilkins, or you want to do Paradigm, they may have an angled speaker, but at the same time, it's probably not getting to the correct 45-degree axis. So we've worked with a lot of customers to build boxes that are the correct volume that they can then mount on their ceiling, so their surface mount, to where they can have that correct angle, and they are meeting that RP22 standard, at least from a speaker placement. We've done a lot with custom backer boxes that would go into a sound isolated room on the clips and channels. And speaking of ceiling boxes and backer boxes, the wides are another really big one right now. They have to be, depending on your speaker, probably a minimum of 15 degrees angled. And if you're doing a sound isolated room and you want it to be slick with all the fabric, that's got to be tucked in those walls really, really tightly. And that we've done quite a bit of that. I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, I want a custom in-wall subwoofer. Yeah, we'll do that for you, right? I typically have a rule. If it's cool and it's custom, we'll do it. I spent a long time in corporate America. I just turned 40 last year, and I think I might have had a little midlife crisis and said, hey, if I'm not going to jump and start my own business now, I don't know if I'm ever going to do it. So I made the decision to do that. I've had some really great partners, Kris being one, the screening room AV being another, and John has been a tremendous help to put me in touch with JVC and Panamorph. And then I've just had a lot of great industry connections, and that has helped me tremendously. I've been pretty active in the Facebook and the forums, so I think people knew my name anyhow, and they followed my personal build, and they followed some of the things that I've done. And I made my own Hushbox years ago, and people would reach out to me. But when I made the jump to start my own company, people, I don't think, were surprised when they were like, oh, I know who that is, and now he's making stuff. And that has been a really easy transition from all the help from everybody in the community that I've gotten.
I'm really glad we did it. Obviously, I haven't had a lot of time with it yet, but it's already, noticeably quiet at the same output level. And, now we'll start to, over probably the next week, experiment with like, okay, do I want to run it higher? What does that do for me? And things like that. But it went from a projector that you could barely hear to essentially like whisper quiet. Like you have to really try to find the noise there.
We try to make it as turnkey as possible. So that top plate, that ceiling plate that you get is already pre-drilled. It's ready to go. You just physically mount it to your ceiling. Now, the difficulty in that would come from two things. Maybe your electrical outlet's in the right spot. Maybe it's not, right? So there's some difficulty there. But that would be no more difficult than if you were installing a projector from scratch. We've had customers say, well, can you just put a pass-through into the box and I'll plug it in because my outlet's 3 feet away? Sure, no problem. We can do that for you. If you're a little nervous about running ductwork, that could be a little bit of a challenge. You're running 2 4-inch flexible ducts and you got to mount an inline fan somewhere. But the actual mounting of the box itself is pretty turnkey. I mounted mine with my 13 and 11-year-old, right? So I mounted the ceiling plate on my own. They helped me carry it in. We held it up to the plate and we just zipped it in through the side. So that portion's pretty easy. I would tell you the challenges, though, don't come from the box itself. It may come from something outside of that, getting an IR repeater into your box, getting the correct HDMI cable into your box, routing your duct work, maybe moving electrical. And really a lot of that just comes down to how clean you want the installation. some people that may not bother them to have an electrical cord outside the box. Some people are like, no, I want this to be as clean as possible. That dictates the difficulty.
He provided everything. There wasn't a single thing that myself or my friend had to go and get. There was just a box that showed up at my house. It had the fan, it had the diffusers for sound on the intake and the outtake. It had the ducting. It had everything that we need. The only thing that we needed was anything that we wanted to strap it to. Although the fan actually comes with that, we ended up using some different things to go into the trusses in the attic. But having now done it and been up there and done it, anybody could do it. I mean, it literally is just take thing, plug into next thing, take thing, plug into next thing, and you're done. It would better probably be to be for two people, just because, somebody holds this up while you're coupling it or whatever. But, looking at it now, my wife and I could have gone up there and got it done in probably a half an hour, because again, it's not that many parts and there's not a lot to it. I'd say the hardest thing that would have been done is, because you're going up through your ceiling, when you put the plate up and then you have the holes that where, the ducting is coming in, he provides some nice, sleeves that you could just push right up through, but you do have to cut the hole through your drywall. So once you have the plate where you want it, you're going to have to cut through your drywall through the plate to create those ports. So you're going to want to make sure that where you're going to cut through, you're not going through like a joist or something like that. So, there's a little bit of pre-planning that has to come with that, and you have to buy a hole saw, for your drill or whatever. But after we got done with that, the rest of it is just, a couple collars and running this stuff like that.
The order process is really dependent on the difficulty of the install. With every customer, before I even allow them to give me a deposit on the product, we want to have a 30-minute consultation. There's no charge for that. We just want to make sure the product is right for the customer. Can we integrate it into your room properly? Is it going to give you the benefit that you're expecting? And then ultimately, are you going to be comfortable with that level of installation? Even though, I feel that it's very easy and turnkey, and those who have underwent installing one, I think feel the same way. But look, anytime you do anything in your room, it could be daunting depending on your skill level. I've had a lot of people not want to put a screen together and mount it, right? And some people are like, oh, I could do that in my sleep. But the order process is really, I have people reach out to me directly. I typically send them the information back, just a high-level overview. We schedule a call. We determine what product is right for you. If that's something you'd like to move forward with, we collect a 25% deposit. 2 weeks prior to starting your build, I usually reach back out and say, hey, has anything changed? Is there any modifications you'd like to make? Get the product done. When it's ready to ship, the remainder is due, and we ship it out. And then after that, I don't mind answering questions, and I'm available via phone, email, text, whatever's convenient for the customer.